Hi, I'm Tara from Marathon Mates. On this episode, we're going to talk all things jeffing, a run-walk method many marathoners use to help them get through the distance. Are you ready to run? Let's go!
Welcome to the thrilling world of the Flying RuNR, brought to you by the Marathon Mates.
Awesome. See, for some reason it still pauses. I don't get that.
No.
So, okay. Alrighty, whenever you are.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Flying RuNR. On this episode, we're going to be talking jeffing. What is jeffing, you may ask? Jeffing is a run-walk technique that was created by Jeff Galloway. This form of running is a great way to run a marathon, and we've seen many runners use this technique to get PBs and achieve their running goals. As usual, I am joined by Tim and Tony. Guys, how are you this week?
Hey, I'm good.
How's the ankle?
Yeah, the ankles. Okay. I'm smiling at least. I did 2 consecutive days on the weekend where I did a combination of run walk and 30 seconds of running followed by a minute of walking, but then I changed that up a little bit during the course. And so I did 7K on Saturday, 5K on Sunday.
Wow.
What's really surprised me though is that how much, like, my quads were really hurting today and my hips were really have been really hurting. So it's interesting how you limp around the world for like 7 weeks, like I did with my ankle, how much that changes your body, and then to get back into normality is just really weird. So the ankle feels good. It's still swollen. It looked a little bruised this morning, but I've got some pain at the back of the Achilles. But I'm firmly got my mindset that I'm moving forward. So it's nothing unbearable at this stage. Just really confused about the rest of my body. So what about you guys? What did you guys get up to on the weekend?
So before I tell you what I got up to, it might be that you're favouring one leg more than the other because of that fear or rolled ankle that you've had in the past, and you may therefore just be altering your run stride just a little bit, and that's maybe why you're hurting some of those muscles as well.
I've got no doubt that that's probably nailed it, Tim, because
Yeah.
I'm trying to land softly. I'm not trying to put the whole weight back on the ankle. I know that it's healed, but it's not strong. So but yeah, really, like, both quads, hips are really sore. I think the back was because I'd elevated the foot while I slept.
Yeah.
And so it's changed my sleeping position. So I think that's the back. So I think the back will come good because I've said bugger the ankle and bugger the elevation while I sleep. So, but yeah, so yeah, it was 12 weeks Sunday. So yeah, feeling good.
Plenty of time, and you've run 1/6 of a marathon now, so it gives you some confidence. You've backed it up with another 5K run, a park run on the Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, park runs are on Saturdays, but that's okay. Yeah, speaking of park runs, so we went to our Bunyaville park run, our local park run, and it was their 10-year anniversary. So they're one of the, they're the top 50, I think, marathon park runs here in Australia. They were 53 or 54th ever park run established. So to get 10 years up was huge. For people who don't know, Bunyaville Park Run was really the start of Tara and my running journey. It started 10 years ago, but Tara went to the 3rd ever Bunyaville Park Run. So just around Christmas time 10 years ago, found this thing that the other girls at gym said, come along, have a try out and see how you go. Liked it so much, me into it. I couldn't even run the first kilometre when I went and did parkrun. And yet here we are 10 years later, and we've run around the world. We've met a lot of great friends. We've met you. We've met lots of other people that we're grateful for, but we've had a lot of fun together, and it's really changed our health and well-being. So
and now you're kicking my butt in every single run. Who was the fittest, stronger one, and now it's you. So
it was really nice to get there and celebrate their 10th birthday and catch up with many people that we've met there over the years. And there's still a handful of originals that were there 10 years ago that turned up on Saturday as well. So it was quite an emotional type of run, I guess, because it was celebrating and a happy type run. But a good one for us. We ran them separately. Started off running together, but we then went a bit separate. I went a bit harder. Bunyaville's very hilly. It's got lots of ups and downs. It's a trail course. So
there's even water in the creek this week.
Yeah, there was even a water crossing at the creek.
Be completely dry, and it's great. You just fly through it. Then there's other weeks that you've got to do a bit of a jump through, and then there's other weeks that you've got to wade up to your knees through or your hips through. So it depends on how much rain we've had.
Yeah.
But it's friendly. We only ever get about 70 to 80 people. I think we got a few more this time. But it's like family. We're a very friendly bunch, and it's great.
Yeah.
Now,
no. Before we talk about that, I guess the other thing is we didn't do a long run this weekend. We've both decided we just want to cruise through December and give our bodies a bit of a break. We did GC 50, as you know, last weekend, and that knocked us about. I'm also taking some advice that I gave last week in Tim's tip. I'm going off to see a podiatrist tomorrow. Like you, Tony, I'm getting a little bit of pain up through the calves, and I can't work out if it's just a fatigue from the year that's been, or it might be injuries, or it might be the orthotics. I think it's the orthotics. They're more than 12 months old, and generally I get pain when I get more than 12 months. I'll go see Nick tomorrow, our podiatrist, and he'll correct it all for me and get me back together and give it a few more weeks rest through December and hit the ground running in January for a big push towards our next major in April in Boston.
Your leg might be hurting, dragging me along beside you so much. Maybe I should cut that time rope and let you go by yourself.
Maybe. Who knows? So it's just an easy one. So anyone who follows us on Team Ellis or on Strava, you're not going to see a lot of running stuff over the next few weeks, but it's still good for us to rest the bodies. It's what we need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good that you're listening to your body. You're just coming towards the end of the year, time to refresh. And this morning I weighed myself, which was the first time since Chicago, and I came back from Chicago. As I said, I was in great shape. I was the best weight that I had been for a number of years. And just in the 7 weeks, I've put on 3 kilos. So I'm not too unhappy with that. And it doesn't stress me out too badly. But I now know that I need to get those off, and I need to drop some more before I get into Tokyo. So
you've only put that much on. I've put a lot more on than that.
Yeah.
There may have been those beers we had for Marathon Mates on Saturday.
Well, that's the thing. That's why I'm not too unhappy with that, because I have been a little bit more liberal in my forced rest of maybe having a couple more beers than necessary. So it'll be good to get back into some discipline. And yes, for all of our followers out there, we did catch up with the Marathon Mates, and it was just amazing when you look at that small circle of people. There's 8 of us or something that was there on Sunday, and comrades, the Big 5 marathon, as well as Tokyo, Boston, Chicago, New York. And then on top of that, we've got Jed and Kay doing the Dopey Challenge in Orlando. So we've got just around that table, all of those experiences that we're going to be sharing with each other. And
plus Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast and all the other little local events that we'll be doing as well.
Absolutely. But it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing just the community you can build and what you can share. So
absolutely. As Jay said last week, running friends become family. There's a lot of there between our running family, I guess, not running friends, running family. So it's great. Now, I guess we should probably talk about this jeffing thing. Tony, you are the person who does this really, really well. You and Sharon Jeff. Tell us about Jeffing, because, well...
But before we do, we need to go to the news.
Sorry, my fault.
All right.
All right, Tim, let's go to the news and tell us about what's been happening around the world this week, and then we'll talk about Jeffing a bit more.
Tara's very keen to get into Jeffing, so
try this Jeffing thing. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So around the world in the news in the past week or so. Last week we talked about Valencia Marathon. We talked about the 4th fastest marathon time being set by the winner, the men's winner. But it's since come out in the last week or so that there were 40 separate national records set in that one event. So that's a quick event, and it's got to make you think about what's going on with race times at the moment. I know, Tony, you and I have talked about this a little bit. We've talked about how quick things are. Is it the shoes? Is it the training? Is it something else? So it's got to make you think when you get, the 4th fastest time of all time, the top 15 runners in both the men's and the women's, when you compare their results, was very similar to the Berlin race this year. And then to hear 40 separate national records in one event. I know it's a flattish course, but it's just amazing what's going on in the world of marathoning at the moment.
Yeah, I get amazed by it still, as you know, and it sort of does my head in a little bit. And even more so for me, it's how quick people are in their first or second marathon. So you look at Kelvin Kipton, and like he ran a 2:03, then a 2:02, then a 2:01, then all of a sudden he's at 2 hours flat. And I was thinking today, and it's I just pulled it up as you were talking, Tim. I was thinking, did Eliud Kipchoge run that fast from his very first marathon?
No.
And
No.
he was 2:05:30 in 2013 at Hamburg.
Yeah.
So certainly not in the vicinity of the 2:01s and the 2:02s, but 2:05 in what's that, 10 years ago? That was a quick time, I'd imagine. So they're certainly changing the face of marathon running.
Yeah, it was a quick time, but it wasn't a world record at that time. And he worked his way up over a number of races to the world record. These guys are coming in and just going bang. You've never heard of them, or I haven't heard of them, I guess. And they're coming in with a different mindset. I know we've talked about the shoes before. I don't think the shoes are the things. And if you listen to the runners, they're saying that's not what makes them run quick, but it's what helps them recover. So they can do more training sessions during the week, more distance during the week, and maybe all that accumulated leads to faster running times overall. But it is interesting, and I'm not sure if we have seen the end of these quick times. I wish people would stop focusing on the quick times and start focusing on racing a bit more rather than trying to go for the quick times. But it is interesting to see the quick times. But it doesn't help, or it does help, I guess. Valencia next year has said, come to Valencia and run a fast time, and if you set the world record, we'll give you $1 million US for the first one who cracks the world record next year. So they're really going out of their way to attract it. And I see your note on there now as well, that in Valencia, there were 5,000 runners who ran a sub-3 marathon, which is just unbelievable. It's crazy. I know I was listening to the Running Channel podcast today, and Andy Badley was talking about his race. He ran a 2 hours 53, and he was 3,800 and something. Was from memory. So
how many entrants do they get for that, Valencia?
They get up around 40,000, 35 to 40,000 entrants.
Okay, so that's a very good amount for the sub. Like it's a huge marathon, but yeah.
Who was the new Masters record was set also at Valencia, wasn't it?
Keeley, yes, by Keeley. So he's 42 or 43 years of age and ran a 2:04 or 2:05 to set the new Masters world record. It's just ridiculous.
So something to think about. Kipchoge is 40 next year, and on November 5, I think he's around that time. So that gentleman that just had the Masters record may only have it for a year, because you'd imagine Kipchoge is going to run a bit quicker than that if ever he runs.
Well, Bekele, who the guy you're talking about, was 1 second off or 2 seconds off setting the world record a couple of years ago at Berlin.
Yeah.
The second all-time fastest time. Never was able to crack Kipchoge. So it would be disappointing if Kipchoge just comes along and sets a 2:02 or something like that next year. But anyway, it is what it is. Now,
amazing.
Speaking of Kipchoge, Kenya has named their provisional Olympic team for next year. And boy, oh boy, isn't this a dream team. So in the men's side, they've got Kelvin Kiptum, Eliud Kipchoge, Kip Kamo, Timothy Kiplagat, and Benson Kipruto. So they're all serious runners, right down to even Jeffrey Kamora and Amos Kipruto and Titus Kipruto. So it's like the Kiprutos are all through there. So you got to think, just looking at that team based on times alone, that's first, second, and third, gold, silver, and bronze tied up there. But we've said it before, I can't see Kelvin Kipton going there. He's talked about running in Rotterdam, and he's going there with a purpose of probably setting the world record and going sub 2 hours. So if he does that, Eliud would have to be the number one ranked runner there in that team. But as you know, anything can happen in a marathon, and anything can happen in the Olympics. In the women's side, again, a very strong team. There's Ruth Chepnitich, Rosemary Wanjiro, Jep Koskai, Shep Kuru, Jep Chirachura, who won in New York last year and won the previous gold medal in Tokyo. And then you've got Bridget Gosgai as well. So again, that's probably first, second, and third, or gold, silver, and bronze up there for the women. So I can't imagine all those people being there next year, but it's going to be a very interesting wait and see to see who pulls out first and who goes and who doesn't go from the Kenya team. Speaking of major marathons, so this week Berlin and Chicago have held their lotteries for general applicants running the race. It's very hard. I can't find any of the statistics associated with it, but just looking at Berlin lottery, I think there's around about 20,000 places available. So a bit under half of their field is taken up by the lottery. I've heard numbers around about 120,000 people entered the Berlin lottery. So you got about a 1 in 6 chance if you got into the Berlin one. Chicago's come through, and it's again very similar numbers. In fact, I think it's more. It's not 120,000. It's probably closer to 250,000 entrants in that lottery. So they're big numbers. But if you didn't get in on Berlin or Chicago lotteries, the good news is Traveling Fit has packages for those races if anyone is looking for them, and you can get in contact with Traveling Fit, sales@travelingfit.com. Free plug, Murray, Mara, Michael. Thank you very much. But yeah, you can contact Traveling Fit and go in through those guys if need be.
If they've got spots available left.
Yes.
So
yeah. Now the other big news of the week for those who are Boston fans and those who love their jackets, and I know Tara and Tony, you both love your major marathon jackets. They've released the design for next year's Boston Marathon jacket. For those who don't realize, the jacket reveal at Boston is a big deal. Sometimes it's blue and yellow, the traditional colors. Other times they mix the colors up. They used to sort of go alternative years, but now it seems to be every year they're coming up with a different color scheme. The colors this year are predominantly red and blue in colors, which to me suspiciously aligns with the colors of their new major sponsor, Bank of America. Is that true? Is it not? I don't know. But Tara, you've seen the jacket.
I actually don't mind it. It's look, I don't really care if it's blue and yellow or if it's embroidered or if it's what color it is. I will buy the jacket even if it cost me $4,000 in Australian money, only because, well, I've got the collection started, so I might as well finish it now. So yeah, I actually don't mind the jacket. I actually think it looks nice. Tokyo marathon jacket that we got in 2020, and you got one of those too, Tony. I don't think that was anything to write home about, but it's a jacket, so I've got it. Yeah. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I actually like this year's Bank of America Boston Marathon jacket, because the other little thing that people have picked up is that the old sponsor, John Hancock, was never on the jackets, but Bank of America is now sitting firmly underneath the unicorn of the Boston Athletics Association, amateur athletics. So I don't mind the blue and red, but the Boston jacket and the discussions and arguments that people have
every
year is just ridiculous. And when you get there, you'll see people in the jacket that they first ran the marathon in, the blue and yellow, and then every year all they do is embroider a new gear on the back. So you will see people who have run 10, 12, 14 marathons, all because they've embroidered extra on the back. So to me, it's like there's a lot of pride, obviously, in people that run Boston, and well done. Congratulations, especially all those that can qualify. But to me, I like the jacket, blue and red. It's a little bit better than the ones that we got, although I'm liking the Boston more than I did when I was in Boston. So, but yeah, it's just an argument. It's just a discussion piece. And, you know, it's a jacket that represents the event. And the event is now the Bank of America Boston Marathon.
And that's what it comes down to, isn't it? You just should be just grateful and proud of the fact that you've actually made it to the Boston Marathon. It's supposed to be this elitist run. It's not supposed to be about the jacket. It's not even supposed to be an elitist run. It's just supposed to be about the marathon. So for me, I'm just happy to have got a spot next year. I don't really care. So.
But you can also buy the tights and the shorts and the tops that all match the jacket. So you will see people fully decked out in it as well, no doubt.
Absolutely. And I have seen on other pages where they are actually selling the blue and yellow jackets with the Boston Marathon unicorn and the logo and all that. Not through Adidas, is it Adidas? Yeah. That's the official sponsor. It's through a different company. Obviously not an official jacket, but you can buy a blue and yellow one if you go onto some dodgy website. Be that your PayPal account gets hacked. So I don't promote websites.
Yeah, so that's one. I guess the other good thing with it being red and blue, it's the colours of a very good football club in the AFL, which we follow. So Tara can always wear it to football games. Go the Demons.
Yes, Tim.
Anyway, now the other big news of the week, our very special friend, our very good friend, who was on episode 19. If you haven't listened to episode 19, go back to the episode 19, press play, listen to that, and then come forward to now. Kim Tudjman, who was on that episode, she was talking about the World Age Group, World Marriage and Marathons Age Group Championships. Well, the good news is she's qualified again for Sydney next year. So
fantastic
well done. Awesome work. And you get to run at home in a age group championship. So well done.
Yeah, great news. Well done, Kim. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks for that, guys.
Now you can get excited, Tara.
Excited about my jeffing. So, Tony, this is your specialty. This is yours and Sharon's thing that you do. When we were at the Dopey Challenge, we watched people, and I don't think I'd ever heard of jeffing before 2019. Went to Dopey Challenge, and then we met a guy called Jeff Galloway at the expo, and we're like, who's this dude, right? So, and then throughout the races would be like, people would be going 3, 2, 1, raise their hand, and they would pull over to the side and stop, and we're like, what's going on here? Worked it out, and it's actually a really efficient way to run. So do you want to tell us about how it actually works? Does it actually make you want to keep running again? I think if I stopped and started walking, do I want to start running again? How do you do this thing?
Yeah, it's very interesting. At the end of the day, we would not have completed anywhere near the amount of running that we do if we hadn't taken up Jeffing. And I've got to thank Sharon for introducing me to Jeffing. But, at the end of the day, at its very simplest, people will call it the run walk method. You run for a set period of time, you then walk for a set period of time. I call it the run recover method. And it is a very effective way to, especially as we're all getting a little bit older, and for those especially who may not have run a lot in their lives and pick up the bug a little bit later, it eases a lot of stress and tension on your legs and your joints. And basically, what you do is you set yourself an interval period, and you will run for a certain amount of time, and then you'll walk for a certain amount of time. So one of the interesting things is a lot of people sort of I don't know whether they treat Jeffing as a real serious pursuit for runners, but there's been a 4-hour marathon that's been recorded under Jeffing. And it all goes back to the intervals that you want to do. And it's how you treat the walk. So the walk is not about you slowing down because you can't run any further. It's part of a strategy. So as you said, Tara, I'm not sure how I would go if I slowed to a walk. Well, when it's part of your strategy, you don't necessarily take it as slowing to a walk. It's part of a transition period. So you've got a timer that goes off. You don't just automatically stop and walk. You sort of slow into the walk. And then as you get used to your timer periods, you then transition into the run again. So that's the way that I do it. And that's the way that I feel that it works the best. And that over time, the way that Sharon and I would have looked at it, and, there's been circumstances that have really stopped us maximizing Jeffing to its fullest potential, is by, if you think about it, that we use the one minute on, 1 minute off. For us to improve our time in a marathon, if we were to go to 90 seconds on and a minute recovery, all of a sudden you're running for, what's that, 30% more in a marathon, which should effectively increase your time quite markedly. So, but yeah, it just, as things have occurred, that hasn't really allowed us to do that to its greatest impact. But yeah, we love it. We would not have done anywhere near the amount of running that we do if it wasn't for Jeffing.
So your walk or your recover part of it is not just a leisurely stroll in the park, I guess, is it? It's actually still got a lot of purpose. You're like walking with a lot of purpose still, just getting the breath in, bringing that heart rate down, and then that keeps it going. It's like once you've recovered enough, or once your time frame's up, you start running again.
Yeah, so just some interesting stats now that we are on our Garmin watches is that during our run portion, we'll probably be on about a 5-minute or 5-minute 30 per kilometre pace. And then as we move into the run period, we don't want to go over that the walk period or the recover period. We don't want to go over that 9-minute pace. So it's interesting. So if we were able to run further or for a longer period of time, and once again, there's just circumstances that haven't allowed us to do that, but we would obviously be spending more time in that 5-minute 30 pace than what we would in the 9-minute pace. So it just stands to reason that you're going to start to increase your time. So at the moment, for example, with the running that I'm doing coming back from my injury, on the weekend I did 30 seconds on and a minute recover. So And that 30 seconds just went like that, can I tell you? It just went so quick. So this week I will probably raise that and go back to the 1 minute on, 1 minute off. And during my runs on the weekend, I actually extended the run breaks on a number of times on both days, where I would go through a full cycle. So by that, I mean I did a 30, I'd run through the 1 minute, and then of course I've got to run through the 30-minute again. So I was effectively doing those a 2-minute run section. Now, of course, I'm not doing 5-minute pace at the moment because of my ankle, but it still made me, it made me feel a lot better to where I am heading into Tokyo. So
do you start your runs that way as well? So say, for example, you're on a race. Do you start your race that way, or do you go like, yep, we're going to go for the first 3 kilometers and then we'll start our jeffing, or do you just start your jeffing straight off?
No, we aim to run the first K in any of the big races, and that's purely because of the crowds that you have there.
Yeah.
So, and in many of the cases, like Boston, for example, you've got that thread of the cutoff that's hanging over your shoulder, as you do in Tokyo, for example. You've got some pretty inconsistent cutoffs right throughout the marathon at Tokyo. So the last thing we want to be doing is being towards the back of the corral and increasing our chances of that cutoff. So we want to get as best a chance as we can, but we're also very aware that we don't want to get in faster runners right way. So we'll always start towards the either side of the corral, and then we will attempt to get through that first K. Now, Sharon suffers really badly from asthma, so even just doing 1K full on is a bit of a challenge for her. But that's what we aim for, and we get to that 1K, and then we start looking for the opportunities to get some space by ourselves so we can start to do that. So, but there's a real etiquette there as well, and it was good that you picked up on it in Disney. Yeah, yes, I've seen people that put little notes on their back saying what their intervals are going to be. I've seen people with, I reckon there's a market for T-shirts where, instead of a street sign that says, those trucks that say frequently stopping,
Yeah.
Jeffing people should have one that says frequently slowing. So, but the first time we ever saw someone put their hand up was at New York in 2018, and we were coming off the Verrazano Bridge, and we're seeing people just put their hand up and start slowing down to a walk, and it took me a while to figure that they were doing that to let people know that they were going to slow down and start to walk. And we had never seen that in Australia, and even now I do it, and Sharon says no one else bloody does it here. So, but that's not the point. It's courtesy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you don't want people jamming into you. We are mindful that there are faster runners around, and that we potentially may be seen as an impediment, which is the interesting thing. That, of course, when I hurt my ankle, I was the faster runner, and I hurt myself by trying to go around a slower runner. So maybe there's some karma coming back. But yeah, there's Did I answer the question? That was a
Yeah,
great.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we were in Disney World, sorry, and it was only in the marathon. I don't think I recall seeing it in the half marathon. It was in the half as well, but they had actual jeffing groups. So they actually, like how you'd have a pacing group, they'd actually have a whole full group of, like a train of these people that were jeffing, and they had like shirts made up and stuff like that, and they were all in yellow, I think, from memory. But I love the idea, like looking at it. And now when I go through water stations, because I will walk a water station because I can't have enough coordination to drink and run. So I will now, especially in the majors or overseas, I actually just raise my hand as I'm going so that the people behind me know that I'm slowing down too.
I'm getting.
Yeah, but I slow down. You go get the water.
Yeah.
does it frustrate you though? Like I saw it in Disney World, and I've seen it in a few others where runners within 300 or 400 meters of the start line then stop and start their walk, and it's like you're just getting into it. Does it frustrate you at times that you're walking when you feel you could probably keep running?
It we should do a whole show on what frustrates runners by running or running together. Because there are so many benefits to running together, but then there are just as many frustrations, I reckon. So yeah, it frustrates me at times because I know that I've probably got a little bit more in me some days, but then again, there's other days where Sharon's got a little bit more in her. So but yeah, it's the challenge for me, Tim, was always I need to get into a rhythm, and I can do that through jeffing, but there are some days where and often when you're really, really hurting, the last thing I want to do is to go slow down into that walk.
Yeah.
So I'll keep running through that just to try and keep, the rhythm going and getting into that routine. And Sharon infers that in another way to what I know I need to do that sometimes. I just need to keep myself jogging more or less. And of course, I'm going to be a little bit further in front. And Sharon takes that in a certainly different way to what it's intended for me to do. But I know in those times, if I stop to a walk, I'm going to struggle to get back into that run. So I need to keep doing that at times. But yeah, it does frustrate me because there are certainly days out there, and I certainly didn't think that we would still be doing 1 minute on, 1 minute recover at this stage of our careers. And, Sharon's asthma doesn't seem to be getting any better at all. And of course, I'm now going through the period where I'm trying to get back into some level of running from my ankle. So I think Tokyo is going to be a 1 minute on, 1 minute off scenario. When we first started running, I used to always say to Sharon that when 2 minutes before the finish, 2Ks before the finish line, no matter what the distance, I'd always say to her, I'm going to test myself, I'm going to go. And as we know, happy wife, happy life. And I only did that a couple of times, and I realized the impact that had on other people, and so I stopped doing that. But yeah, it does frustrate me, and I can understand that frustration. I listened to a lady on another podcast who jeffed a personal best at Chicago, and which is fantastic. But everyone who jeffs is ultimately going to get a personal best sometime. So it wasn't necessarily the technique that creates the personal best. It's going to happen. But she was saying that Jeff originally his ratios were 40 seconds running, 20 seconds walking.
Yeah.
And so when you think about that in terms of changing your running style or transitioning twice in a minute, you're thinking to yourself, my God, that's a lot of changeover during a 42K race. But the way I started to think about that was, well, by the time you've finished your run and you've transitioned and then transitioned back up, really it does probably minimize the amount of walking time that you're actually physically doing. So I don't think I could ever do that shorter ratio, but by the same token, people swear by it. So
and I guess it's important to know jeffing's not just about running marathons. People jeff over 5 kilometer distances, 10 half marathons, and even ultras. But the thing I sort of like about it is you're working muscles a bit differently, but if you did it consistently enough, you'd actually build up a lot more strength, fitness, endurance through that process that you can then, as you say, change those jeffing intervals if you want to be able to run more, walk less, or spread it out a little bit more.
Especially if you're going up and down hills, I guess, because if your period is like, you've got to run up that hill and you'd normally go, I've got to walk because I'm too tired, and that's your period of running.
Yep.
Too bad that's your period of running. Is that how it sort of works? Do you keep going the hill, or
you take advantage of what the course offers as well. So, in Boston, which was probably not the world's greatest example from 18 kilometers on, for me anyway, it's net downhill at the beginning. So we found ourselves, so if we're coming up a hill, we tend to say we're going to run down a hill. So the interval might be that you run partway up the hill, then you get into your jeffing transition, but then we'll try and make use of the course by running downhill, and that might give us a 1 to 2 minute or 3 minute running period, and you just play it by ear so many times that. And you shift when you need it. Every now and again, Sharon will say, I need an extra walk. Okay, no worries. We'll do that. Every now and again, I'll say to her, we need an extra walk. But even just on the weekend, I found myself needing to do those 2 minute blocks just to once again cement in my mind that I'm on the right track heading into Tokyo. 30 seconds just went so quick. I couldn't believe how quick it went. Because considering all the demons that play in your head when you're coming back from something like an ankle or a calf tear, by the time you've done your 30 seconds, all you've worried about is how's my ankle, it's done. So it was just it just seemed really, really quick. So
and I reckon walking, this is just me thinking aloud here, but walking would actually help a lot more with your recovery afterwards because you've worked your muscles differently but more evenly. So probably in your walking, you're taking a shorter stride or maybe a longer stride than you would when you're running, or vice versa. You're stretching out muscles a bit differently through that process, that you're not working the same muscles the same way over and over again. A bit like when you said in Berlin, your hips started playing up because it was a flat course. Because you're walking it, you're actually working your muscles differently, which probably would help you recover a little bit quicker.
Yeah, and there's probably something in there about heart rates as well. You're keeping your heart rate a bit lower than what you normally would by getting out there and just totally maxing yourself out. So where it does let you down and is in shakeout runs, because there's no provision. There's no provision there for jeffing, and even at Chicago when we joined the Traveling Fit 5K on the Friday, we just ran down the waterside, the lakeside. I can do a 5K pretty easily nonstop, so I'm right, but I know that Sharon's not. So all of a sudden the group goes, and all of a sudden you're waving in the distance saying, hello, we're back here. So not great for shakeout runs, and unless someone, of course, is having their own very special jeffing shakeout run. But it was interesting. I saw on Galloway's, because it's named after Jeff Galloway, of course, a US Olympian, and he's got a podcast, and I've actually listened to 1 or 2 episodes of that particular podcast, and he seems a pretty unique sort of a character. Where was I going? I've lost my chain of thought now.
His website.
And his website details the intervals you need to do if you want to run certain paces for miles. And I found that really interesting because all of that's achievable. All of that is absolutely achievable. So a good place for people to start is that maybe 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off, and then just start to build, So just start to build. So
is it something that you can build on to, like, for a more advanced runner, obviously, to say, like, I'm going to do 800 meters on and 200 meters off, or something like that, or 900 meters on, or does it always have to be timed, or or is it an individual thing?
I think timing's the easy option because everyone's got a timer somewhere nowadays, whether it's on their phone. I set my timer with my Garmin, and it just buzzes me. Sharon prefers to have the timer on the iPhone, so she gets the ding ding in her ears. And you don't always have access to kilometer meterage. So you don't necessarily know how far that 800 meters has gone, unless, of course, you've got the watch that allows you to do that. Carol Moore, one of our friends who go through Traveling Fit, she ran Boston, doing that method, and there was a period there between 10 and 15 kilometers, and she'd run for a kilometer, and then she'd transition into recovery for about 200 meters, and then she'd run a kilometer. So, but it was interesting because this was once again before I got all buckled over with cramp. There was a period there for about 5 kilometers. We basically ran together. We'd go a little bit in front, and then she'd go a little bit in front, then we'd go a little bit in front. We'd just keep talking to each other as we're doing it. So you'd think running a kilometer and then 200 meters would be just much better result than just going one on, one off. But it was pretty much the same for a set period of time, which I found amazing. So, but yeah, so that's the method that she uses. So
yeah, and I think you've got to find the right method. You've got to train to that method. It's not just rocking up on race day and having a go. You've got to go in with your plan because you've trained to the plan. So, if that's Carol's training process, walk 200 meters, run a kilometer, walk 200 meters, she's trained that way and trained her body to cope with it. So it is an interesting one. I look at it also at this time of year being so hot and humid, it's hard to build that long, fast sort of run up, but it might be a good do, Jeffing, to build some of that fitness in, work the muscles a little bit differently during summertime without having to bust a gut.
And also keep your heart rate down. So with the heat and that we're going through, it might be a great way to keep your heart rate down. I mean, you have your Garmin. Do you notice a difference in your heart rate at all? Or I guess you've always done the Jeffing.
Yeah, I've always done the Jeffing. So my heart rate is my heart rate. So, but then again, once again, prior to injury, I would normally sneak out and do a run by myself on a Wednesday, and that was mainly just to give myself my mindset that I can still run and not just walk. And I'd aim to do a 3K or a 5K, and I'd just do that in a run. But during that time period also, I'd say, okay, I'm going to try and get my best 1K time, and it's going to be the 3rd K. And so I'd really go out with a purpose with that, just to try and do something. And fundamentally, I didn't notice too much difference between my max and my average heart rates during those runs to what I do for Jeffing. So I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. So
maybe that's how I get back into my running next year when I feel like actually training for Boston. Just see for the heart rate. I'll just do a couple of runs that way just to see.
Yeah.
I'm still not sure if you've convinced me on this Jeffing method. Yeah, I get the concept. I get that it's for some people. For me, I still like the run the bit, I think.
See, the interesting thing, Tim, you do need to have 2 willing participants in doing it. And so I've sort of put my, in many ways, I've accepted that this is what Sharon and I do together. But I remember when we caught up during the Gold Coast Half Marathon and we were running with you, and I think the pace you were running at was about 5:50 per kilometer at that particular time. And it was good. It was good. It was a good pace. We were having a conversation. It wasn't like there was stressing. And I don't know how far we went. Maybe we went for a kilometer, maybe a little less, I thought. But I knew that was going to be like the max of it, because then we'd need to get into our transition. And maybe it's mainly its mindset that's holding, that can hold people back doing Jeffing, that they get used to doing Jeffing and then sort of stress when they start doing a longer run. Maybe I'm not necessarily sure, but I think as you build and you naturally build your VO2 and all your endurance, I think you can achieve more if you're willing to stretch.
Yeah, and coming out of that comfort zone is a big part of running, and especially being a marathoner, as you know, everything is out of your comfort zone. From probably K25, it's terrible. Don't let me put you off marathons, people. But it's all mental from about K25 onwards, isn't it, guys? And to come out of your comfort zone, perhaps it is a good way to do that jeffing from the tough part as well for somebody like myself or something like that. Maybe that's how you get your mindset back as well.
Yeah, I think if you did that, though, you'd need to train for it, because you're busting your gut to the point where you're exerting almost everything in that first 25 Ks that you're then having to switch to a different running technique. If you train for it, you could probably do it. Just, getting your heart rate up, maxing your heart rate, using maximum energy, fatiguing your muscles, getting to 25 Ks, and then jeffing from there. You may end up just walking more than you're actually running. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a mindset. If I'm a runner and I'm running a marathon and I have to slow to walk, it's a different feeling and a different mindset to if I'm a jeffer and I'm transitioning to my next run.
Yeah.
So you're walking with a different purpose and a different mindset. And that's why you hear a lot of runners who just will not ever slow to a walk, no matter how much it kills them. Or that they somehow have diminished. Like, we know people that have run 3-hour 30 marathons who feel that time was diminished because they walked for 25 meters or something to catch their breath or to reset their mind. And I just sort of think that's crazy. That's part of your race, that 25 meters, reset your mind, refreshed yourself, revitalized yourself, and off you went again. But for some people, once they start walking, it's hard to get back. But for a jeffer, it's a transition. That walk period is a transition every time, and you transitioning to your next run.
And I guess we've got the same thing, because I know water stations, I will walk. Like, that's just me. I know it. So in my head, I know that, okay, I've got a water station coming up in, say, a kilometre. I've only got a kilometre to go. So it's a similar sort of mindset, isn't it? I guess it's like chunk of what you're doing. Yeah, absolutely.
200 meters of walking through a drink station, 3 more Ks of running. It's a different form, but a very similar form, where it's run, walk, recover. And I like that term. It's not a walk, it's a recovery period.
Yeah.
And it's about resetting, bringing your heart rate down, making sure everything's feeling good, and then going again. And I think with the jeffing, what you're saying, Tony, is the jeffing just keeps you at this nice, consistent pace, run, walk all the way through, that you're not getting your heart rate up to an elevated level. You're not fatiguing your muscles out before you walk. Therefore, you're able to recover and then keep going for a longer period of time doing it.
Yeah. And pace per kilometre should be pretty much spot on every kilometre still, even though you're doing, say, 5:30 and then 9 minutes. Your average pace will still be whatever it is per kilometre, isn't it?
Well, our aim when we go into, a marathon is that we aim to hit that 4K every 30 minutes, right up until we get to 32. So all going well, by the time we come into the 32 or the 33rd kilometre, we're sitting around that 4-hour mark. So that's our aim. And you can get that consistency by doing what we do, because we know our average feeling. And when I say average, our extended average. So if we were to, both of our best for a 10K is about 1:05. So we know that if we're just doing a 10K, we'll push it, right? But if we're doing a marathon, we aim for 8K every hour. So we go 8, 16, 2 hours in, 3 hours in, we're at 24. And it doesn't, well, it very rarely goes to plan, but Chicago went to plan, and we just looked at each other and said, wow, we've done it. Let's slow down now, because, so we had that choice and we had that option. So, and it's just consistency.
Absolutely. It is a consistency thing. It is a learning thing. And I think it was about my 10th or 11th marathon before I actually got to the point where I'm like, hey, I'm actually doing this in the right way now. Like I've learned what my body wants to do. And it sounds like Chicago was that for you. So fingers crossed for Tokyo that this little setback with the ankle hasn't changed the mindset or the body too much so that you can keep that momentum going the way that you have been.
Yeah, well, even I worked it out. Even at I did 7K in an hour there on Saturday with the dodgy ankle. So, even just doing that, that's a 6-hour marathon or close enough to.
Yeah.
And so, just then the only drama is how do I evade these
Cut-off.
inconsistent Tokyo cutoffs? So, but I'm 12 weeks away. I've got no doubts that we'll be
Lots
right
of
there.
time
You'll
to
get
go.
it done.
Yep.
So how do we find out more, I guess, on it? I guess there's fan sites on Facebook and Instagram there's a whole heap of Jeffing fan sites. There's also an app that you can download for free from Galloway, I think. And there's also the website, as you said. So, there's a lot of information online for people there if they're looking for it. But, there's a lot of fan clubs out there for Jeffing. You only have to look at some of the websites out there. There's a lot of people that swear by it.
And as Tony said, if you can do a 4-hour marathon with it, I'm probably doing things wrong.
Yeah, and if it gets more people into running and being healthy, it's got to be a great thing. So I see people where we run do power walking, and that's potentially putting a little bit more strain on hips based on what you can see in their style than what Jeffing does. So there's going to be a method out there for everyone. And Jeffing's just another opportunity for you to become more active and maybe test yourself and maybe get a little bit fitter and live a little bit longer. So I think that's got to be good.
Wonderful. Thanks, Tony. I've actually learned quite a lot tonight about Jeffing, so thank you so much about all of that. Really appreciate your time to explain it to us as well, because it's something new sort of to me. So we're up to the Tim's tip side of things. Make it short for Tony's Instagram posts.
So I couldn't work out what to call this one, but I've called it run for distance ahead of pace. But normally I say distance beats pace. And I've been saying that for a long time. And it probably ties in a little bit with this episode. So it's about putting the watch away and focusing on just getting through the distance sometimes. If you want to build up your endurance, you want to build up your time on feet, you want to build up your ability to run longer distances, nothing beats running distance. You have to beat distance. Don't worry so much about the pace, like what Tony's saying with the Jeffing method. The pace can come over time if you adjust your intervals or adjust your times, but naturally you'll get faster just running the same distances or improving your distance over time. So focus with the mentality of distance beats pace. So of course, there's people out there that want to run pace and they want to run fast. That's fine, but I think if you want to be in the game for a long time and you want to enjoy this sport called running, focus more on distance rather than pace, and you'll actually enjoy it a lot more.
Yeah, great tip. Great tip. And sometimes it's a little bit of an oxymoron that we talk about things like run slower to run quick.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think you spoke about this recently, Tim. If you can run at a lower heart rate, it automatically starts to build up. So you hear a lot of people talking about zone 1 and zone 2, which are heart rates on Strava, or your Garmin, and they do a lot of their training in those sorts of zones, which then enables you to be able to run quick. And just as another interesting aside, I've got a colleague at work who is a very focused, dedicated, time-driven, results-driven runner. And he came back from an interstate trip just recently, and he was telling me about how he went out for a run with someone from where he was at. And he said, Tony, it was so good. It was, so this person's a 4-minute a K, 4-minute a K runner. And he said it was just so good because I enjoyed it so much. We ran at 5 minutes 30 and it was just so enjoyable. And the girl I ran with ran a personal best time, and she thanked me, and it wasn't me. It was just so much fun, and we were talking and everything. So maybe there's some there may be a little bit of a change in some people, because you've got to enjoy your running, and as Tim quite pointed out to me recently, he said there's going to come a time where age gets people who are focused on time, and you're either going to kill yourself or eat yourself inside because of that. Just get out there and enjoy. And if you get the chance to go quick, that's awesome. But just don't forget to not enjoy what it is that you're doing. So I think that's great advice too.
And that's exactly why Tim runs with me. He enjoys just running alongside me. He looks at everything. Everyone says to me, "Oh, do you buy the race photography?" No, I don't need to. I've got Tim. He takes all the photos for me as we go. So, but hey, you enjoy running a bit slow, not all the time, but you do enjoy running slow with me, because you get a lot more out of helping somebody as well.
It's easier on the body. The body doesn't hurt as much. You enjoy the run. You enjoy the experience a lot more. It's a happier time. It's good for your mental health. As you say, you're not stewing on, oh, geez, I missed that by a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds. And, you just enjoy it. And as a result, you're injured less. You're running, because you're enjoying it. You're getting up happy. It's a better place to be. So yeah, focus on distance rather than pace.
But it does also help us slower runners to run with faster runners as well, because it takes the mind off that whole, oh my God, I'm running, it's hurting me type thing. So
yeah.
Well, now starting to end our episode. So before we do, Tony, what's happening for us next week?
Next week it's going to be a great little episode. We're going to share tips and tricks on how you can run cheaper. Yes, you heard that right. There's no doubt that running can be quite expensive. And just to give you an idea, I saw an Instagram post just yesterday, I think it was, from one of the major brands, who highlighted their new upcoming range of shoes. There were 6 of them, and they were each designed to do a different thing. And I reckon the race day shoes that they had would have been $300 plus, and the rest would have been, you wouldn't have picked them up for anything less than $260. So I reckon if you were to own those 6 pairs of shoes to do each and every one of the runs that they've been designed to do, you're looking at quite an investment. So we're going to hopefully show you the way to save money buying shoes and apparel. And with Christmas and Christmas sales coming up, it's certainly an episode that I wouldn't want to miss. So I'm really looking forward to that one. We're going to share some tips and tricks on how we manage to, run relatively valuably inexpensively.
Thanks, Tony. Yep, that's supposed to be this peep sport is definitely not working out for the free sport for us, that's for sure. I'm really looking forward to next week's show so that we can save some money. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed this podcast, this episode of The Flying RuNR. If you did enjoy this podcast, please like and subscribe wherever you have listened or watched this episode. Video of this episode will be available at Spotify, YouTube, and audio will be on Apple, Amazon, and Google Podcasts, and most other popular podcast platforms. Remember, every step forward is a victory. Lace up, hit the road, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Until then, happy running.
Happy running.
Happy running.